once again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and thank you for making time to join this we hope will be a very vibrant discussion. This faculty webinar on leadership has been a series of engagements of the African Organization for Research and Training in collaboration with Queen's University and the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Canada, really trying to look at how to build critical skills for oncology faculty in academia and in practice. Now, I think we're incredibly privileged to have really a powerhouse of strong aortic leadership, including our founding father, Prof. Chris Williams, who's on the call as well, but really trying to see how we can spend the next few minutes just to reflect on what are the aspects of leadership that the continent needs. And it's really an informal discussion. So I'd encourage us all to write your questions in the comments, write and tell us where you're dialing in from. But really, any questions that you have, try and that you want to any of our esteemed guests to answer is really why we're here. To start us off, I will hand over to Prof. Nazik Hamad to introduce the first speaker.
Thank you so much, Miriam. And before I introduce our first speaker, I just want to remind everyone about the Faculty Development Program. We had our first workshop, which was actually attended by 90 people in the virtual meeting in 2021. And then we followed that with several modules. Some of them will be available at the AORTIC website, some of leadership, and in program evaluation. We are coming up with other modules, including curriculum development, including teaching and learning, and on promotion. And also during the last AORTIC meeting in Senegal, we had several sessions devoted to faculty development, including academic relationship between oncologists and their institution, the love-hate session. We had a session on promotion, we had a session on wellness, we had a session on regulation of the profession, and we're hoping we will continue this series. And I will introduce our first speaker, who's actually instrumental in the development of all of these modules and all of these talks, Professor Olubunmi Olapa, and I guess a lot of you know him as a very prominent educator. He was, I think he's still the head of the Association of Medical Schools in Africa, and also was a provost in University of Ibadan. He has multiple publications related to education and leadership in education, as well as being a urologist and a scientist in that regard. So he will be talking to us about building teams and leadership. And over to you, Prof. And thanks you for being with us. Is Olubunmi?
Doesn't seem to be any longer on the call. Yeah, I seem to be disconnected.
Oh, okay.
But Werner is here. You can move to Werner.
Yeah, let's move to Werner then. Miriam, you're muted.
Werner, can you hear us? Is she on?
Werner?
Maybe as we wait for, maybe we can.
Werner, is there a problem with your audio? We can't hear you, Werner.
Yeah. Nazik, perhaps we can go to Prof. Serene and Prof. Ngoma, and then
No,
we can get the two back.
Werner, unmute yourself. Werner, unmute yourself.
She's trying, but there's something wrong.
Prof. Hamad, if we can proceed with maybe the second set of speakers, then we can come back to the two.
I think,
Werner,
you know, this is because we are, it seems we're doing the order wrong. So we will do it right this time. We start with the presidents of, past presidents of AORTIC. So it's my pleasure to introduce Professor Siringe, and there are a lot of people in this.
I'm letting in Olaopa too. He's back.
Okay.
Well, we can start speaking. Actually, this is not a formal talk.
Yeah.
It's like an interactive talk and
Yeah.
webinar too.
So,
Thank you very much.
So Professor Gay was the president from AORTIC from 2009 to 2011. He was in the member, UICC board member, and he has contributed a lot in terms of leadership, not only in urology, but cancer in Africa. And a lot of you actually know him. So I'll let you go ahead.
Thank you. I'm afraid people are going, I'm just accepting people. I'm like the host. Hopefully I can do, I'm admitting Werner again. So thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this webinar. And I'm very happy to see my friend, brother, Professor Chris Williams, sitting here with us. It should be very early in British Columbia, in Vancouver. And show the interest he has for anything related to cancer in Africa for many decades. For the youngsters, the young people, or the young generation online, you should recognize Chris Williams as the very first Secretary General of AORTIC back to 1981. 1981 is not very old, but it's old enough to give us a new president in Senegal, because our new president was born in 1980. And we are opening the era of youngsters leading Africa. And we are very happy to see the outcome of election in Senegal, when everybody all over the world was scared regarding what happened the past months and years. We went on election on Sunday peacefully, and yesterday morning we all went to work. And in the afternoon, the losers called the winner, the outgoing president called the incoming one, and he's a young one, was born when I was at medical school 40 or 50 years. This is very nice to see a very young chap coming to become an African leader. And this should be the same even in our organization. And the main objective of this kind of webinar is to nurture the young researchers, the young cancer specialists to become the African leaders very soon. I'm very happy to see Miriam, who came lately when I even finished my term as president, to join AORTIC, and who is now president. It is the way things should go. And it that need motivation. You should to be for the young, we need to be motivated. Nothing in life can be done without passion, without enthusiasm, without motivation. I don't talk about extrinsic motivation. I want what internal, intrinsic motivation. External motivation is the one you have to maybe to pass exams, to graduate, to have your parents happy. This is what you call the external motivation. The internal motivation is the one you have inside yourself. That is the way to allow you to succeed, to be a successful doctor, to be a successful researcher, to be a successful caregiver, to be a successful cancer human resource for Africa. This is very important. Without motivation, one cannot do anything. And the message to the young people connected onto this webinar is: number one, you need to know your outcome. What do you want to be? I haven't learned any drug, any tablet, any traditional medicine that helps someone to know what you want to become. Your outcome is yours. Nobody can tell you what you want to be. Like when Werner decided to become a medical doctor, it was her own motivation. When she wanted to become a cancer specialist, it was her own motivation. When she wanted to be a radiation oncologist, it was her own motivation. And now that let Werner to be on the top, maybe woman in the world in the cancer. And I tease them. I say now AORTIC has become a woman in cancer, a leadership group, because there are few male over there, much more women than male. The president, the vice president, the secretary general, they all are women. They were minority in all the organization. When you went to ASCO, they were the minority. You go to AACR, they were the minority. You go to UICC, they were the minority until they decided in Paris to take over. I remember at that specific meeting at the AGM, all women put in from everywhere and decided to be the leaders at the UICC. And this has happened in AORTIC. It is not the way to push the male out, no, but to show that they are there. And I think they should be more inclusive and having some room for the male to join them in this adventure, endeavor to lift up cancer in Africa. Second thing is to be flexible. We should be flexible when you want to achieve anything in your life, because we are in a very moving continent, problems happening everywhere. That's why we are very happy in Senegal going to election on Sunday and knowing the president yesterday and going to work the next day. Africa is a changing continent. It's a very vibrant continent, but unfortunately we are having troubles here and there. And unfortunately that leads sometimes to migration of human resources for health, either in country or outside the country, in continent or outside the continents. So you should prepare yourself with the flexibility to adapt and to adjust. Whatever happens, you should stick on your objective, you should stay focused and become a cancer person. Number three is to have what they call a sensory acuity that allow you to anticipate. You need to anticipate. The way we are delivering cancer care now will not be the same as in 2030. Everything will change. Even I was telling my people that next election in Senegal, in 5 years, we will vote with our smartphone. We will not go to queue for 2 hours. So hopefully, with COVID, we have learned a lot about physical interactions. Now we are living a digital transformation that should be an advantage to medicine in general, healthcare in general, but to cancer care, cancer research, and cancer training. It will be very important to definitely move to digitalization. The day I was inaugurated as award at West African College of Surgeons, president in Dakar, Werner was there, and my friend Olaopa was there. I think Nazik was there. That very day, I told the people we need to digitalize the college processes. At that day, I said, for the first time ever, none of the executive committee member lived in Lagos or in Lagos, where the headquarters was. It was a premonition. And months later, we had the COVID, and we ran all the college activities remotely. Everything was definitely handled remotely. So AORTIC should definitely move to that digital transformation and to support cancer training, to support cancer advocacy, to support cancer research, and support cancer care. And for the youngsters, the last point is to act. When you have an idea, you want to implement it, do it now, not tomorrow. You better have a non-perfect decision to make today, rather than waiting for a complete decision, but it'll be very late. So whatever you want to do, the day it's well streamlined in your head, do it the same day, not tomorrow. So one, know your outcome. Number two, be flexible. Number three, be able to anticipate, having a sensory acuity. And number four is act now. And get a very good mentor. Nobody can do anything without a good mentor. But to have a good mentor, you should be a good mentee. Good mentees make good mentors. That's not the good mentor that makes the good mentees. You have to be a good mentee to have a good mentor. And I thank you very much for allowing me to open this discussion. And again, very happy to see my old time brother Olubumi Olaopa. Everybody know we are almost twin, and having everybody on this call. Thank you, Nazik. Thank you, Miriam, and we support you. And thank you, Twalu, for being here. This is our role as past president, to be with you, to stick with you, and to support you. And we will do, by the grace of God. Thank you very much. Thank you. Shukran.
Thank you so much, Prof. Serene, for those incredible insights. And really, as you said, the four-point action plan, that's really culminating in acting and in identifying good mentorship and also being good mentees. And perhaps following the presidential run, it only makes sense that we move to our next esteemed speaker, Prof. Twalit Ngoma, who was the past president of AORTIC from 2007 to 2009, but is the executive director and senior consultant in oncology of the Ocean Road Cancer Institute, and the head of oncology department at the Muhimbili University of Health and Allied Services, but has acted in several capacities, including being a board member of UICC for 6 years, and currently in charge of several research initiatives. Here to share some reflections on African leadership and where we think the future lies is Prof. Twalit Ngoma. Welcome, Prof.
Thank you very much, Miriam. About 20 years ago, during the AORTIC meeting, I can't remember where, I was seated with Mzee Chris Williams for breakfast. And then I was trying to say, what do you think is the problem in Africa? Why are we not doing as well as other continents? And then it occurred that leadership in Africa is the problem. At that time, I was inclined not to believe that. And I say, there is no argument that Africa, like other continents, has good share of both bad and good leaders, both at country level and at organization levels. This could be in the country, this could be at organizations like AORTIC. But why should Africa be singled out that it has that? So today, when I was asked to reflect on African leadership, I thought of continuing to think along the lines during that meeting. Then I said, but when you say bad leadership, what does bad leadership mean? Bad leadership is leadership that erodes, disables, destroys the economic, physiological, psychosocial, spiritual well-being of the people who work in it, and is sometimes in very permanent and deliberate ways. So if a country has a lot of bad leadership, then all these things happen, and development is not going to be there. Bad leadership in a country level, of course, will threaten the well-being of its citizens, its organization, and it will affect the performance of the societies, the organizations. So if Africa has a lot of bad leadership, how can we achieve what we want without changing the leadership? What causes the bad leadership in Africa? So today, I would like to share with my audience that there is a pressing need in Africa. The dynamics, the evolution of bad, or rather toxic leadership in Africa. As an African, first reaction would be to try and say, no, there's no bad leadership. But looking at what is happening, if we don't address the problem properly, we'll not get the solution to the problem. Let's assume there is bad leadership in some countries in Africa. I will not give examples because in a session like this, examples are not really required. But what makes a bad leader? And who is a leader? Why should they be bad if they really wanted to lead the people? Bad leaders represent the dark side of leadership. There is a bright side of leadership, which is for the people, to work with the people so that they can achieve whatever their objectives are. And when you have bad leadership, this affects the individuals in the country and the organizations in the countries, and all efforts that are made by these individuals and organizations become futile. In other words, bad leadership undermines the sense of dignity, self-worth, efficacy of its citizens. And when you have that, and there are many examples, this results in exploitative, destructive, devaluing, demeaning work experience. Nothing gets done. Nothing gets accomplished. The destructive actions, some may be psychosocial, economical, or physical, or spiritual. And all these make people who are affected by bad leadership ineffective. They will try to do their best, but they will achieve very little just because the leader who is there to lead them is not leading them properly. Take the example of AORTIC. A very good organization with a good mission, with a good vision. There is need. Cancer is increasing in the continent, and nobody's going to dispute that, like AORTIC is needed to fight cancer in the continent. If we get good leadership in AORTIC, we'll get the progress we need in Africa in fighting cancer. So it's very important to get good leaders who will lead people, work with people, so that they can address the gaps that are in the societies. Then in that very meeting, we talked about corruption. And I was a bit defensive and said to Mzee Williams, but which country is not corrupt? Because I agree that bad leadership and corruption go hand in hand. If one looks at the Global Corruption Perception Index, which is given out every year, African countries are depicted as being more corrupt than other countries in other continents. So whether we agree or not, for those of us living in Africa, it's something we see daily. Corruption affects people. Corruption denies people their rights. Corruption does not bring development. And if a continent like Africa is depicted as very corrupt, and leadership is there, one would expect a good leadership to put in place mechanisms to fight corruption. Maybe we may not understand what corruption is, but simply stated, corruption is a form of dishonesty or criminal offense which is undertaken by a person, organization, which is entrusted in a position of authority in order to acquire illicit benefits or abuse power for one's personal gain. And this may involve many activities, which include bribery, even in the hospitals, in cancer centers, or embezzlement of public funds. When you have this, they interfere with development. Worst of all is political corruption, and that is corruption done by leaderships. And this occurs when an office holder or other governmental employee acts with an official capacity for personal gain. Sometimes corruption during in politics is seen as if it's not corruption. People look away and let bad leaders get elected because of corruption. And when you have a bad leader, then the consequences are felt by all the people in the country. That is why it's very important to make sure that leadership at the top and at the level is given to people who can lead, to people who are not corrupt, to people who have integrity, and people who are willing and ready to lead. So if Africa is perceived in the Global Corruption Index as being a corrupt, as having more corruption than other countries, then we have to look at the kind of leadership we have in the continent. The leadership has a duty to put anti-corruption laws so that corruption is stopped, minimized, and punished heavily. I've talked about bad leadership, but my topic was reflections on leadership in Africa. It's not that all leaders are bad leaders. There are good leaders. AORTIC presidents were very good leaders. The past, the current, and the coming one, I hope, will be good leaders. So, in contrast to bad leadership, good leadership is healthy, authentic leadership, which nurtures and affirms the dignity, the worth, and the efficiency of individuals. It makes the people get a feeling of wanting to do things, of wanting to achieve, of having meaning. It empowers them to have meaningful work experiences, to enjoy what they do, to be able to do things that are useful to themselves, to the society, and to the global community. This is only leadership. Without good leadership, whatever you do will not work. So a healthy, authentic organization is one that would nurture and grow and have some members of the society feel to be wanted to be part of the society and to contribute. Everybody in this world is here for a purpose. Everybody can do something that is unique to themselves. It's just a matter of making people be able to unleash the potential that they have. This is something that Africa needs. We have a lot of potential that is lying dormant that needs to be unleashed. And the only way we can do that is through good leadership. Make people do things. Make people want to be creative, want to be innovative. Give them space to do things. Can bad leaders be competent? I have examples, but I'll not mention. There are examples of bad leaders that I know who have been very competent also. But if you look at a narrower definition of competence, that is only focusing on technical and professional competence, a bad leader may still be seen as competent because they are delivering on what they promise. However, this is particularly true if short-term view is taken. Because over a longer term, the short-term success is going to be unsustainable. They use mechanisms, tactics, which are not sustainable. And because of this, they destroy their teams. We'll have a session on team building. You need teams to build things. So they destroy the teams. They destroy their departments, their organizations, their people in that process. So you can say they were competent, but if they are bad in the long term, they will not be sustainable. If we look at a comprehensive long-term view of leaders, especially bad leaders, because they are not competent across all domains or they are not well-rounded leaders, then one needs to say, what if we look at the leader that leader needs to have? What are the attributes? What are the personal attributes? It's not necessarily charisma. It's not necessarily having good looks or anything. But there you need in a leader, they have to have some technical, they have to have professional competencies, they have to have good values, they have to have good attitude, they have to have good character and good conduct. And I am very sure that we have people like this in Africa. If you look at a normal distribution curve, in any country, there are bad people, good people, and majority of people are good. So we have quite a good number of good leaders in Africa. It's just a matter of giving them the opportunity to lead. I know time is against us. And so I have to say that if we look at bad leadership, and this, you can find them in a lot of African countries, you find that decisions and actions are justifiable in terms of results desired, and that is if the end justifies the means, not because it is the best thing for the society. You find that the country or organization saves the leader rather than the leader saving the country. And in doing that, you find that the personal needs of the leader, like greed, status, and power, are given more priority than the personal needs of the masses. This is more common in Africa than in other continents. In Africa, regardless of whether the leader has made any real or meaningful contribution, there is glorification and public visibility, which is given priority, and so on and so on. So these are the things that we need to look at in Africa and try to solutions for. In conclusion, Africa appears to have a good share of bad leadership. This needs to change. There is no uncertain term endangering the well-being of Africans and compromising the future of Africa. Good leadership is required for Africa to develop and stop being the capital of poverty globally. We need good leadership in Africa at all levels. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Twalib. And I think there's quite a number of gems in there that I think we can almost start to tease out. And I think one of the things that you had mentioned was really the aim around authentic, honest leadership. And I think I was also encouraged to hear that along the normal curve, there's hope that we can harvest quite a number of leaders. I think that's really something that we need to talk about, empowering people and empowering our communities that we're hoping to lead. And that perhaps is a really good segue into the next talk by Prof. Olubumi, really, which is around how to build teams. And I'm going to ask Prof. Hamad to kindly introduce our next speaker.
Thank you. I think I introduced Olubumi earlier. He was really one of the pillars of the faculty development program for AORTIC and a leader in education and in the University of Ibadan and the whole of Africa. And I think it's very important to us to tie this with also, Professor Twalib and Professor Serene about building teams, because now we need to build teams locally, hospitals and teams across regionally and across the continent. So Olubumi, you go ahead.
Thank you very much, Nazib, for that introduction. And let me thank the organizers of this webinar and AORTIC for inviting me to share my thoughts with you on leadership and team building in Africa. I would like to share my slides, my screen, and I need to have it enabled. It says disabled here. Whilst the host is enabling my sharing my slides, let me say that I thank the earlier senior colleagues who have spoken because they've laid the groundwork for what I want to speak about, and I'm going to lean on what they have said to shorten my talk where possible, because I know time is fast spent. But needless to say, thank you so much. Right. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can. Perhaps you could move it to a slideshow. Excellent.
Right. So just a greeting from Ibadan, my medical school. My objectives are to improve the understanding about leadership and team building. And as I said, the earlier two talks have already laid the groundwork for that. And then to look at the peculiarities of leadership and team building in Africa, particularly the oncology setting. Help us understand the different styles of leadership and to improve our capacity to form skills, to form teams. If we start by looking at who is a leader is someone who exerts the most influence in a group and thus has to provide direction and energy to the group. At the individual level within units, the leaders must be able to mentor, coach, and inspire and motivate their members. Whilst at the group level, they must be able to build teams. Within these teams, generate cohesion and resolve conflicts which are inevitable. But then at the organizational level, they must also build culture and generate the change that is necessary, as Serene was saying, to cope with the ever-changing world. It's worthy to note that if you have a simple task, you may need just one leader, but invariably, most tasks are complex and therefore you need multiple leaders. So what is leadership? Leadership, simply put by one definition, is that social influence in which the leader seeks the voluntary participation of his subordinates in an effort to reach organizational goals. The key words there is influence, not power. And also the fact that the subordinates must contribute voluntarily, in which case the leader must try and ensure that he gets their buy-in. And the buy-in is to overall organizational goals, not personal goals. It's the organization, and that takes us back to one of my earlier slides where I mentioned that the leaders must also determine what the organizational goal is. So if time had permitted, we would have asked the questions below, which is, do we think that we are leaders? And if yes, why? If no, why? And then to look at the activities we engage in from a day-to-day basis. But suffice to say that we are all leaders, whether we identify as such or not, which is why this webinar is quite important. There are several types of leadership styles. The autocratic, in which is one in the leader just hands down orders and doesn't listen to anybody else. Democratic, in which there's shared responsibility. Bureaucratic, in which you have organizational influence, but sometimes that is overbearing. And laissez-faire is just get it done as much as you can and leave the rest to the best. It's important for us to note that there are circumstances in which all these leadership styles are appropriate. Certainly, if you are just starting an organization, you can hardly be democratic with people who don't know what it is you're talking about. So you need to be somewhat autocratic. And once the organization gets going and you have experts coming in, then you need to listen to them. And as the organization gets even bigger, then you need to have organizational structures, SOPs in place that must be followed to make sure that the culture of the organization is kept in shape. It's important to know that a leader is not a boss. As this cartoon depicts, the leader is in front of the pack, pulling the load, not sitting on top of the load being pulled by his subordinates. It's important that we keep this in our minds. When we come to team building, the most important thing is for us to know that a team is not just simply a group of people. A team becomes a team when those people come together and combine their resources in various proportions because they share the common mission for the organization and intend to achieve a common objective. And a team only becomes a team, a group only becomes a team when there is synergy between them, which means that the end product of their effort is greater than the sum of their individual contributions. So if each person brings index 2 to the table and there are 4 of them, you are not a team if your sum total is 8. It must be 10 or 9 or above. More importantly, you must make sure that it's not 6, which is when you're working against each other. It's important to note that in order to achieve this synergy, the team members are therefore dependent on each other's characteristics and skills to ensure that those are maximized for the synergy to occur. So you must form a team where you need synergy. Certainly oncology is an example. If we look at all the people who are involved in oncology, certainly the oncologists cannot go alone. So you will not achieve your objectives. So in oncology, like every other aspect of societal building, you must form a team. but you must form the right team. And the right team is the team that has team dynamics. And this is where the leader comes in, because you must look at the personality and skill sets of the individuals. You must look at the organization in which you're working in. You must look at your operational environment, which comprises of the political, economic, and technical and cultural climates, which means that it is different from place to place. And of course, you must try and engender team identity, which comes from the interrelationship between the members. It's interesting because this cannot be forced. It is when you have carefully selected your team that they identify with each other and identify with the goal, they identify with the organization and the challenges of the operating environment, and strive to become effective despite all these challenges. And this is what an effective and efficient team looks like. It's one that has common vision. There's free flow of communication. The people all understand their roles and can take care of the various diversities that are necessary to ensure that the teams is innovative. There must be effective leadership. And ultimately, they must all work together. And each of these has various arms which would enable it to work. But if you cannot engender this, you will not have an effective team. But despite having an effective team and efficiency, you must ensure that it performs. And for team to perform, the acronym SCORE is used, which stands for the leader determining the strategy, which must be clearly articulated values and ground rules. You must work this out before. There must be clear roles and responsibilities for each of the team members. There must be open communication, not just among the team members, but also with the leadership. There must be ability to respond rapidly to the challenges that would come up with the team, either conflicts or indeed challenges in executing the tasks that the individual members have been given. This all wraps up to effective leadership, as has been previously described. But most important and often missing in Africa is regular evaluation. We must constantly check that our team's performance is of a high standard and that the evaluation influences the behavior of teams, i.e. encourages them to improve. I find that most teams, no matter how good they are, often fall drop in standards once there is no regular evaluations, which is why typically there are accreditations of organizations in various countries. So for effective team leadership, you need team leaders who must play an important role in developing and managing the teams. The effectiveness, as I've described, which is the ability to achieve the goals, and the efficiency is to ensure that they can do so with minimal hassle. But please note that only successful team members can be considered effective. If you do not achieve the task, you cannot be considered effective, no matter how much effort you put in. So it's not really about efforts, it's about efficiency and effectiveness and ensuring that the goals are achieved. And for that, a team leader needs to be a role model to his members and intending members, and therefore be able to inspire them. He himself or she must be responsible and dependable, and must appreciate time and the competence of his members as resources that are almost more important than anything else. Once you waste time or waste competencies, then it's unlikely that the team will succeed. In Africa, we have challenges to effective team building and leadership, and we all know this. Part of why I was having problems logging on is poor infrastructure on our end. We've had some power outages for a little while, and it's affecting our internet services. So the operating environment, you have limited number of qualified experts, poor funding, poor support staff. We know the deal. Add to that the increasingly poor host environment with literacy and access declining rapidly, and poverty increasing. There is increasing insecurity. We're yet to get out of our COVID-19 effect. We have issues with the political environment. Cyrene was talking about what happened in Senegal that led to the run-up of this very successful election, which we're grateful about. But we all know what happened in the preceding months, and there is no doubt that that had effects on teams and organizations. The frequent policy somersaults that seem to be unique to Africa. When one government takes over, it discards all what the last government was doing. And the same occurs in organizations. A new CEO comes in, he just simply ignores what his predecessor did. We know about the brain drain. Our experts are leaving town. And to fill in the gap, we're having increasing participation of alternative health practitioners in care of our patients. And that is causing a problem because now the patients are coming with advanced disease and or complications of ineffective alternative treatment. So Africa needs a team leader who is transformational. And to be transformational, the leader must be able to focus on revolutionizing the goals, values and ethics, and the performance of others, including the organization. Therefore, such a person will develop a vision that changes the unit and department to fit this vision to improve the performance of the organization, and must be able to motivate his or her colleagues to achieve this identified goal. Therefore, he or she must be in themselves confident, articulate, and must be able to communicate his visions or her visions freely and have strong convictions about it. People must believe what you are saying and believe that you believe in what you're saying. Therefore, and transformational leaders must therefore innovate, challenge what is the status quo, focus on the people. You must ensure your team members are happy, must be flexible, as Cyrene said, be able to analyze the problems, and trust his or her own intuition. To do this, the leader must have charisma, must have intellectuals, must be able to intellectually stimulate his members. Individual considerations must be able to flow within the team and therefore encourage individual growth. And there must be inspirational motivation. That is, you communicate your high expectations to the team and reward where necessary, so that the subordinates know that you are indeed working along with them. To end, I would put these two quotes out there. One is by Henry Ford, where he says, coming together is the beginning, that is forming a team, but keeping together is progress, but is indeed the ability to work together that makes success. And the Swahili proverb that says, it is amazing how much people get done if they don't worry about who gets the credit. This is the essence of a team. Once the glory goes to the team and not to the individual, and certainly not just to the leader would always be recognized, then people are inspired to work to the zenith of their abilities. In conclusion, leadership and team building is in Africa is required for most organizations and projects to succeed. And therefore, we must focus on building an effective team, which must be driven by competent leadership that can actually manage. It's not enough just to be in position. There must be commitment of our political and administrative leaders, and there must be a plan for long-term solutions to the challenges already identified. Brain drain is the reality, and increased output of health professionals is required across the continent to fill the gap, and not just the output of health professionals, but health professionals that are actually competent across board with new age skills such as leadership and team building, so they can face the challenges ahead. I would once again like to thank AORTIC and the organizers of this webinar for inviting me to share my thoughts with you on this important topic. And I would take any questions when they do come up. I thank you all.
Thank you, Prof. Olubumi, for those interesting insights. I think we're all fired up and looking at to see how we can start to score and how we can go about inspiring and maintaining and really working together to successfully build teams. Now, sometimes when we think about leadership, we sort of think about what's happening out there and not necessarily identifying ourselves as leaders. And so perhaps bringing it a little closer to home and thinking through in my individual capacity, in my sort of ecosystem, how do I, as a oncologist or a leader, sort of look at how to thrive in academia while being a busy oncologist? And so next up is, she needs no introduction, but Prof. Werner van der Pooy, who's a clinical oncologist based in Kuala Lumpur in Ghana, who is actually our previous treasurer and past secretary of AORTIC, and has many hats, which we won't get into, but really looking to hear her insights around how most of the young oncologists can actually make this thrive. Welcome, Prof. Werner. Prof. van der Pooy, can you hear us? I don't know if we've lost her. Maybe, Prof. Olubumi, maybe you can, as we're trying to get
I'll try and check up on her. So
okay. Maybe one of the questions that's come up is what are the plans and views of the leadership of AORTIC regarding various ongoing international and intercontinental studies and clinical the last bit's getting. And clinical trials. Maybe we could get some initial sort of insights or reflections in cancer genomics and precision oncology medicine for adults and children alike. So maybe we could get some reflections from each of the speakers just regarding their thoughts around oncology research. Perhaps we could start with Prof. Olubumi and then Prof. Twalib and Prof. Serene.
hi, just a minute. Can you hear me?
Welcome back, Werner.
Another device. So I'm going to have to screen from another one. It's ridiculous. Okay.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, I'm using another device, but can you see me?
Yes, we can see you and hear you.
Okay. All right. I'll try then. All right. So I'm going to talk about thriving in leadership and academia while being a busy oncologist. Problems exactly are these, where you can't even continue. Oh my goodness. Even my, okay, so just to say that there are different pathways for oncology practice. We have the clinical pathway. We have where we have a lot of people who just do the training for postgraduates and any other. We don't train just only physicians, unfortunately. So many other along the pathway. We have the purely academics who belong to the universities, also actually do clinical work, training as well, and then we have the pure researchers. I'll say more bench side researchers. But all these tying together. In other countries, these are separate, but unfortunately for most of us in this parts of Africa, it tends to be the same person or the same group of people doing it, and that can, be quite tedious. So a lot goes into becoming an oncologist in Africa. So which way do you want to go, clinical or academic? Unfortunately, again, you can have a mix of clinical and academia. The problem now is that they are having few physicians who are both clinicians or academics, because it's very tedious. You don't have half the job of both, especially for these parts of the world. In other high-income countries, you have specialized area, you concentrate on just the colon and the stomach. But for us, if it's GI, it's everywhere. If it's GU, it's everywhere. And probably you have 2 or 3 sites that you actually manage at the same time and do your research. A lot of us don't seem to have bench side capabilities, and people in that category tend to stick in the universities or in the labs with very few doubling up as clinicians. But it's changing. I'll say it's changing now, and we are going to have that double one bump. But which way to go is quite difficult. Sometimes they are just set because that is what our that is what is set up for us. But then the whole point of all of this is that we want to improve patients' lives, either by clinical care or by research. Both of us all together have to train the next generation just to improve, patients' life, and that is the end goal. So we should remember that. So in Africa, I think that my preceding speakers have said a lot, but the problems for Africa, like he said, are extended family responsibilities, social circles, gender roles, cultural roles, and expectations, especially for we the women. We have to make up for the weaknesses in our healthcare system, lack of there's a lot of poverty, out-of-pocket payment. Culture and cancer is very difficult to massage together. We have a declining workforce, increasing workload. That puts a lot both clinically and in your academic work as well. And career progression, publish or perish at minimum. And you might also have to be evidence aware. So somehow it might as well just make sense to be a researcher or an academic researcher, because you have to learn the evidence anyway. The new evidence is turning up, every now and often. So it's best to just keep in that direction yourself. And of course, we have poor research infrastructure, and that you need a lot more to overcome it. So that might actually help you to decide which way to go. Unfortunately for us, I take myself as a typical example. My personality, I'm a gardener, a socialite, multitasker. And I think that tends to help a lot in being, an academician and a clinician. I have a lot of resilience. Like our speaker said, without that, you can't go anywhere. You love to achieve. At the same time, I thrive on seeing my patients. That's what keeps me happy. So it can be very difficult when you are drawn in both directions, because it's almost impossible, to do that. So you must have the love for it. But I also have my own problems being married to an African with a teenage daughter. That's just one, and I'm complaining here, I know. But I also like to network a lot. I'm a med-onc, palliative care, government and private. So that's quite heavy on me. Unfortunately, it's also because of our financial status. You have to do so much to earn the same as somebody outside of the low to middle income brackets to be able to live a certain kind of way. I have multiple leadership roles in international societies locally: mentor, trainer, examiner, administrator, heavy clinics, and I love technological advancement, which comes with radiation oncology. Most of you in here are radiation oncology, so you understand. I like to, try the new thing, the new gimmicks, and all that, just to show, just to improve myself and also outcomes for my patients. And lecturer, conference faculty, a lot of that, editor, reviewer, global oncologist, multiple publications. I can have like 7 articles I'm reviewing, for that's my contribution to research, just about 5 in a week. It's crazy, plus my own textbooks, chapters, reviewing grants. So it's a lot. But at the same time, I'll say that I have some drivers that have made this possible. I had mentors who did more. So I was just speaking to somebody today who was talking about AORTIC, and they admire AORTIC and what we do in Africa. Very few people have that in other countries. And I'll say most of what I have achieved so far being on the global stage is from the little bit that I volunteered in AORTIC, a small organization like that. But I met people like Twalib and Serene. I was a little girl, you can ask them. But then I just looked at them, they encourage you along the way. You talk, you have small, positions, but you kind of like grew into it, and they encouraged you along the way, and you saw them up the stage and you wanted to be like them. So I think these are things that, and we also that translated into me becoming a role model. I asked people what they're doing, what they want to do. And I also went on ResearchGate. I'm saying that because you think it's funny, but it actually works out. And I saw that I had 2-3 publications. I saw other people with 30, 40. I'm like, so I just kept putting it in, trying to achieve more and, be in the top level, of researchers on ResearchGate. That's just one of them, but it just kind of like pushed me along. And because you have to create your logs, and I'm like, no, I need to go a little bit higher. No, 3 is not enough, 4 is not enough. Then I wanted to stand tall, no less because I'm an African. I need to stand and, be equal to any radiation oncologist anywhere in the world with my skills, with my knowledge, and what I can do for my patients, most importantly. So automatically that propelled me into being in the lead and taking up leadership roles. I wanted to be a true representative of Africa globally. You understand what I say, because some people pretend to represent Africa when they're not really African. They haven't really practiced. They don't understand the culture. They haven't interacted with patients here or with a failing health system to see how much you have to put in. And I want to stand on my feet and be able to do that. And that's the only way I'll be able to improve the system and help my younger colleagues to overcome the negatives. I chose my strengths. It's not everything that I do. I try some things and say, no, this is not for me. And I think you need to know your weaknesses. It is so important. Okay, I know you have, also like me, I like patient care and yet I like to write. But how I have to learn to say no sometimes. And some things will actually draw you back because it's just too much work. And then try and rope in younger colleagues. I heard somebody saying that and I love that. I think that's the only way to go around it. You can't do it alone. Also, you have to give up your patient care or the academic care, and that's not possible. So the best thing is to work as a team player and lead properly. Okay, not boss over people, but lead by example. So nobody, can say you are bossing them around because you've done it before. I like to make suggestions. I like to make my voice heard wherever I am. Volunteer all the way. So that's how it all started. But for Lupade told me, you need to, in AORTIC Savannah, you need to learn to volunteer. You need to volunteer, just make your voice, I guess, to answer questions and all of that. And people hear your voice, people listen to you. And when they need somebody, they suggest you because they've listened to you, they've heard you, or they've read about you, or they've read what you've written. So that's just how it starts, even just by noting things in the clinic. It doesn't have to be big, large research. I say that all the time. But you need to start from somewhere, and that's what propels you forward. And you need to collaborate a lot, not just with your junior peers, with their senior peers. Don't try and take it all by yourself. As somebody said, it's not science anymore to write anything by yourself, but collaboration is the key, and that is leadership. When you call people together and say, let's put this together, let's write this together. I know, and this is just a joke, but I say I tend to collaborate a lot when I have an opportunity to write something. I call so many other people, but I realized it didn't happen the other way around. So I'm careful who I choose this time. So just remember that you have to choose your weaknesses and your strengths. But I've had a lot of gratifications from that. I have a lot of international recognition, both for my clinical work and what the academic aspect. I have a large network. Come to me if you need contacts. But I have a huge network. So whatever I do, I just send one person an email and then I'm running on the ball. Okay. I love my work. I love to teach. I love being a clinical oncologist, which is both radiation and med-onc. I know a lot of people don't like that, but it's becoming too huge. So then I have to make choices as to which areas I can remain in and what I think I need to give up. It's not easy. I had to give up one of my specialties, which is pediatric oncology, to my colleague, and she's doing much better than I would. So you need to accept these things and let go sometimes so that you'll be more effective in what to do. And I love that I have a hobby as well. I think that takes away the stress. What I have now is a career advancement, academic career advancement, and I enjoy it. And this is what I intended to do. I wanted to have an impact in Africa, not just in my country, but in Africa. It might not be in the world, but I think just putting bits and bits together to be able to stand tall and represent Africa, and also being a mentor to younger people who might not have the opportunities that I had, but at least I'll bring things closer to them just by being there. If you don't sacrifice to be a leader, you are actually reducing the impact from a lot of your younger colleagues to rise further. And remember that you're not going to be there forever. That's one thing you really have to remember. And so you need to make things, better for other people. So my concerns, of course, is do my mentees really interested in research? And that kind of kills me a little bit when you expect people to follow up on what you do. But remember that everybody has a pace, and that's what I realize. Everybody has a different pace. So take your time, and they really do catch up along the line, and said you have to lead, not boss it on them by example, okay? Now, we have a lot of academic dissertations with our final year postgraduates. The whole aim is to stimulate research. Even though we are clinicians excelling in our areas, we're expected to do research. And this is to galvanize us, to put in the interest and see how simple it is to do research. But really, how many of our products actually do proper research? It doesn't have to be proper, but some kind of research. So these are things that kind of like dampen my spirit a little bit. But I said everybody has I think it's also because people can afford to travel to meetings, so they can see, You know, I did a lot of that, so I saw examples, and I yearn to do that too. So maybe we don't have too many examples because they are not exposed to. But a lot can be done, you know, either way with Zoom. So I think we need to learn to do that. And then, like Bumi said, institutional support is really tedious. It's really difficult. I had an intern with me from Harvard. And I'm doing some work with her, and she's made my life so much easier just because of the things that she has access to. And that is so sad, you know. She like took 75% of the load that I would have had to do manually myself. So I think that we need more support for our institutions. I'm still overwhelmed and fatigued, but I really love seeing my patients. I would not let it go for any day. So I need to be able to schedule my meetings on days when I'm off, you know, so it doesn't interrupt with my daily life, and put a stop to it. And I think COVID actually did teach me that, to be able to learn to balance, or else you just go, you know, bonkers, and it affects your clinical work. So don't forget that either way. So I might have less sleep to catch up with publications and all my editorial work. The Zoom meetings kind of like kill you as well because of the time differences. So you need to put your foot down and prioritize, okay? And that can be quite difficult, I know, but you really have to sit down because your health is also very important. And less socially, I like to have a good balance in life. So you might have less quality time with my family, but believe it or not, I put my laptop while I'm watching TV and having a conversation. Everybody hates that, but I'm more engaged than most other people not doing anything like that. Okay, and I have less time and energy to enjoy the things I love to do, but I'm learning to find time for that as well. Because very soon when I don't have any academic work anymore, I'll be in trouble. So how do you plan to do this? Okay, you have to set flexible boundaries, you know, weighing between, you know, what you love the most, all right? Time out, not negotiable, say no, and task shift. That is the best way to do it, all right? Task shifts, don't take it all for yourself. Make time for hobbies and social lives. That's the only way you stay balanced, all right? Don't miss out on a good time. Stay healthy. Any way you choose, there are different types of, there are a lot of different kinds of things that people want to do to stay healthy. Make sure you get enough sleep, at least 5 hours. Prioritize and budgets. So prioritize on what you want. I know there are so many things that everybody wants to do, but you have to be realistic, or maybe, you know, do them in phases, all right? Budget, because most parts of the world, our institutions don't support us financially, okay? So you need to budget to be able to do something and to be realistic, okay? Weighing all the factors to decide whether you can do this or not. So I want to attend a particular conference, but I just can't. Or maybe I'll submit an abstract where my registration is waived. So that pushes me to write something, that pushes me to take an observation from my clinic, look at it, and then based on the current literature, say, I can also, you know, say something about this and what happens in Africa, you know, and then look at, I'll say, okay, let me invite my colleague from Nigeria or from Kenya to see whether they have the same thing. That is how we should do it. So not just take care of the clinic. I think we'll do more by doing research as well, staying as an academic, you know, to keep this, to improve patient outcomes. So first of all, take baby steps. I think that's another problem. We all run to try hard to make sure that we are ahead, but take baby steps. Don't run to be an overachiever. We tend to do that a lot. So I think we need to really sit down and start, you know, one thing at a time. So some of us want to do so much at once, and that is not possible. I think also from the young oncologist, I see that a lot, or the young professional. Okay, especially being a clinician and academician is very difficult. It takes a long time to be at a higher position. So just take your time, and you need to be humble to learn. I think that's, and be ready to have a mentor that's been said already, who has gone through the same thing and has been through the difficulties that you are experiencing. Okay, and then I think that is the way to win, to be able to balance it all. Because without that, it can really get crazy and say, I've heard it so many times, I'm too busy in the clinic, I can't write anything. But that's not really true. You can. Just sit down and put down your ideas. Because what happens is that you tend to forget them. And if you want to join the university, because you need your publications to get some, to get your professional achievements eventually. So it's better to start now. Okay, take short and long-term goals, put them down, and then based on that, you can do a whole lot. So thank you very much. I think I'll end here.
Thanks so much, Prof. Vanderpoel, and I think for that excellent summary at the end. And next time,
I love that.
absolutely. I think really what we've had is balance. It's really trying to find mentorship, identifying your goals and priorities. I think Prof. Hamad had something to add as well. Prof. Hamad?
I guess because we're running out of time. So what became clear is I didn't listen to the advice which was said we should have this of a 2 series, like 2 or 3 series of webinars. So I think maybe that's what we need to do. So I'm hoping we will do another one where we will give a chance to the young folks here to ask the questions or to tell us their own stories, because we are noticing that a lot of young Africans are put in a position of leadership. And I can see many of your names here. And so just stay tuned, and maybe you can, as Prof. Serene has said, act now and volunteer. So maybe you guys can volunteer for the next webinar and design it the way you want. And so I think is Christopher Williams is here. Maybe we can tell us about his take on all of this. And
Yeah, and I think before Prof. Williams comes on, I think one of the maybe also to highlight the fact that we will be having a faculty development workshop in collaboration with Kesho towards the end of the year as well. So this was a teaser. We'll hopefully have another teaser in between. And then really with the culmination of the faculty development, I've seen Kudus and other colleagues have been very interested in how can we get these skills, what are some of the opportunities. And of course, our next speaker needs no introduction as the founding father of AORTIC. I would like Prof. Williams to maybe give us a few comments, and perhaps as you're giving us some insights, Prof. Williams, somebody's really asked about how do we perhaps increase this clinical trials and our translational research. Fun fact is that AORTIC actually started off, the initial projects were running clinical trials. So Prof. Williams is well placed to give us his insights and thoughts about the future. Welcome, Prof. Williams.
Thank you very much. I have very much enjoyed this meeting, and I just left a little note for everybody in the participant section. And yep, there's so much to say, but I don't think you want to listen to me forever. But I've really enjoyed everybody's contribution. And now the reason why I actually decided to join, to attend this meeting, is because for the last couple of years, we've been looking for new leadership within our organization, so-called AORTIC, Hematology Oncology Research Group. Many of you probably know about that group, which I founded about 12 years ago. And we've done everything that Professor Olofbad actually recommended as the way of building a team. We were able to come together, we became friends, and we actually worked together to develop a research program. About 5 or 6 years ago, we got together, really have a research program addressing some critical questions in acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Now, talking about research group, yes, we have a clinical research, but we've not been able to launch that program because of lack of funds. Now, we intend to study 300 patients in 2 teaching hospitals in Nigeria and follow them for 5 years. And all that will cost us only $1 million. 1 million. Yeah, you know, $1 million is what you spend in treating somebody with a drug called pembrolizumab in America for 3 months. Now we want to treat 300 Nigerian patients, children, for 5 years and study them for 5 years. For 1 million, and we haven't been able to afford that money. So that is the main problem. One of the problems of research in Africa, you just don't find appropriate funding. The ideas are there. There are people who are willing to work, but you don't have the support. So I think we're at the tail end of a very beautiful meeting. My greatest disappointment is that the attendance has been so low. At the highest, I think we were about 35 or so. You need to have about 300. AORTIC has a membership of about 1,000. So where is everybody else? So yes, we need to have more of this. And I just put up a notice. I need a young person to join me in AORTIC because I need to hand over the group to somebody. I mean, I'm not going to live forever. And you can see where I am. I was a founding member of AORTIC 42 years ago. So it's now up to you guys, you young people. I've left my email there. If you're really interested, and if you know somebody who has the capability to lead, please contact me. So that's where I'm going to stop. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Williams, and really laying down the gauntlet for us to carry forward. And I think I'm sure you'll definitely have a lot more emails and people looking for mentorship, because we all are ultimately looking for how do we enhance ourselves as leaders, how do we get the mentorship that's required, and how do we, as Prof. Vanderpoy says, achieve the balance. I know we are running short of time, so perhaps I'll just address one or two questions that have been to the panel. I think Prof. Olubumi, one of the questions that came up was the biggest bottleneck in leadership success is the lack of administrative support in the leadership role itself. Where and how do you efficiently pitch the elevator to discordant administration superiors?
That's the elephant in the room. But having said that, I think part of the answer to that,
and I will call you back, please.
Is learning how to work with administration early on. I find that a lot of our younger colleagues stay away from administration and taking on administrative roles at the lower levels and fail to understand the challenges of administration, because administration itself has its own challenges. As Prof. Williams has just said, if you have $1 million and you have 20 projects requiring $1.5 million each, you have to find a way of prioritizing. So to get administrative buy-in, you need to work with administration and understand how administration thinks. And also familiarize yourself with them. All politics, like all leadership, like all administration and all leadership, is personal. If you don't have a personal relationship with your administrators and you're just writing letters, it's unlikely that you're going to get any joy from whatever request you make. And so I would encourage our younger ones to get involved and then decide, I would copy this, I won't copy that when I get there. But to stay away and then just expect administration to help you doesn't happen anywhere, not even in the Western world.
Thanks, Prof. I think, as you said, really everything in life is about building relationships, whether it's building your teams, engaging with research groups, as Prof. Vanderpoy was saying, whether it's engaging with administrators. It's really around building and maintaining successful relationships. I think sometimes the challenge that we face, Prof, is that you sort of have a one-off and you only communicate with people when you need something, instead of trying to cultivate that bi-directional relationship. I think we are running out of time, but perhaps maybe I will ask because we have quite an esteemed panel on this group. There's this mind game called, is it the 3 truths or the 1 truth? So assuming senior professors that, you've come to the end of life and all your work and publications have disappeared. and you're asked, okay, what is your one take on what does successful leadership look like? So if everything is lost, then what would you say is your one take on what makes a successful leader? Now we'll just go around the group very quickly. Maybe we'll start with Prof. Olubumi, since you were just, I think you're currently on my screen.
It's the capacity to innovate and motivate others.
All right, excellent. Capacity to innovate and motivate. Prof. Van der Poel, what is your one truth?
I think that's exactly it too. That's exactly it.
Okay, and Prof. Hamad?
I guess I would say it's the same, but it's just seeing your own mentees, in position of leadership and doing wonderful things, and it's becomes like your legacy,
All right.
your own success.
All right. Thanks, Prof. Hamad. Prof. Serene?
I'll be there.
And he dropped off.
Yes, I'm here, Brown. Yes.
What is
Hello?
your truth? If everything was to disappear and you had to leave us with one message on what successful leadership is, what would that be? What is your definition?
Of successful leadership?
Yes.
Oh, well, Olaopa is a successful leader. My brother Olubumi Olaopa is a successful leader who managed to become the provost of the medical school of University of Ibadan, the alma mater of Professor Chris Williams, who was from Ibadan, even though he was from Abeokuta, not from Oyo State. I know a little bit of you. Well, I don't get, if you are telling me to give a successful leader, what a successful leadership looks like. What do you want me to do?
I'm surprised you know so much about Nigeria.
Yes, definitely.
So thanks, Serene, for that wonderful
Miriam,
embodiment of a successful leader.
Right.
A
Yeah.
successful leader, if I go on the screen, I think I cannot go beyond Twali Ngoma. I have visited Tanzania many times. I had good friends there. And I went into Tanzania in many capacities. I even went up to Pangani, to Tanga, to Mwanza. I went to train surgeons, GPs, students, and I did surgeries very far into Pangani to kickstart the President Kikwete Fund for LF surgery in 2008. And then from then I started seeing what Twali was achieving as an African cancer scientist, not only at the Ocean Road Cancer Center, but training all those oncologists around and going beyond the continent and beyond. He was one of the first from the African soil to be a member of the board of UICC for many, many years. And the way he managed after the first meeting we had in Accra in '83, after AORTIC started, and the second in Dakar in '85, I was there with him to definitely make the ball run, and that led to having this organization that is being now driven by women, exceptional women, who are now on top of cancer in Africa. And I think this is definitely owe it to people like Twalib Ngoma. Before Twalib, the way you see it, Chris, please put on your video, tirelessly, from 81 to now is 43 years old. It is the age almost of the new Senegal president, who was from 80. 44 years becoming the head of state, almost the youngest head of state in Africa. And this is the way the senior people should put the youngsters on their shoulders and pave the way for them to go on top of everything. We have here very successful leaders, Olaopa, Twali, Chris, but you too, Miriam, you are young, you are a leader. And behind you have good friends. Werner is a very good leader, and Nazik. And I think I'm a good leader. Please allow me to say it. To my people here, to other people I know, I was privileged to visit 44 out of 54 counties in Africa, and to do surgeries in at least 26 countries in Africa and beyond. A privilege to interact with people from scratch, to see medical school starting from year one, and to graduate the first doctors who are now professors, and some of them are actually working in very big organizations, doing wonderful things. And this is the way we see things from scratch and bring it up. But if you have been able to be leaders, it's because we have very good mentors who are there thinking about the next generation. And Chris Williams is one of them. You could just, well, I have my job, I have my work, I can eat, I can shop, but no, they're there, making sure that we don't go out of the right path. And this is very important. And if you continue like you're doing now, I knew Nazik when hair was very black, shiny black. And today I see Nazik with salt and pepper hair, and that is encouraging for the youngsters. You are on the way. Thank you very much for allowing us to be part of this and to give them the opportunity to interact with the other generation. We'll be here with you. We support you. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Could
thank
I
you so
just say
much.
a few words there?
Thank you so much,
I can-
Prof. Serene. I'm going to ask Prof. Williams next to give us his definition of successful leadership.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Listen, thank you very much for that opportunity. The most successful leader that I could actually mention in relationship to the AORTIC is James Holland, my mentor. This was the man that I met in 1975. I just went to him for an interview, and we both fell in love with one another right there and then. And that is what led to AORTIC. He was a wonderful mentor for me, so much so that he came to visit me in Africa more than 4 times from New York City. And this is how AORTIC came about. And whatever I'm doing right now, what I'm trying to do is propagate what I learned from James Holland. He was an exceptional man. So I think we're on the right path. But as I said, I cannot be here forever. Nobody lives forever. I have to hand over to somebody. And I want to do that as soon as possible. I've been trying for the last 5 years, I'm scouting, as we're talking right now, I'm scouting you guys. And I want you to scout for me and say, listen, here is somebody we believe can help you. Okay, so that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Actually, before we go to Professor Twalib, I want to say something, Serene. We are having an upcoming generation of young men who are actually going to be great leaders. I can see some of their names here, and I can see Omar here. And of course, they're working in great teams with young women as well, such as Haimonat and the other. So rest assured, we are, the African man is still strong, but hopefully in partnership with African women. And it's great that, African women are doing very well and they continue to do well.
Thanks, Prof. Ahmad. And last but certainly not least, Prof. Ngoma, your parting shots on what successful leadership is. We've had a very vibrant discussion around, mentorship, the need to carry forward the next generation, really having a strategy around building teams and relationships. Your parting shot on what successful leadership is.
To me, successful leadership is leadership that has good succession plan, so that you get good leaders who come up with good plans to reduce the morbidity and mortality of cancer in the continent. So far, our succession plan having the president-elect who learns for 2 years to be president, so that by the time they become leaders, they know the bolts and nuts of running AORTIC. That's a good thing, and it should be improved. Let's see how we select our leaders. That's what good leadership is all about. You leave a better leader than yourself, so that they can come up with better plans to address the problems that we have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'm really conscious of time, but just to thank you all, our esteemed panel and speakers, for those invaluable contributions. Also, just to send you a teaser that we're looking to have more online engagement, not just leadership, but just really around the whole continuum of care. So stay tuned for that. And just a plug in for other sessions around faculty development and leadership in the future. Stay safe, take care wherever you are, and go out there, act, as Prof. Serene says, and make sure that you score as Prof. Serene, Prof. Olubumi mentioned, but then really keeping in mind, as Prof. Goma said, that for evil to triumph, it is for good men to do nothing. So go out there, be honest, authentic, and lead. Thank you, and good day, everyone, and stay safe and talk soon. Bye.
Thank you.